All right, let's talk about one of the biggest shakeups in cybersecurity to come out of the European Union, the NIS2 Directive. Now, this is way more than just an update. Think of it as a brand new cyber shield designed to protect the entire continent. And believe me, it is changing the game for thousands of businesses. Let's get into it.
And you know, this isn't just some abstract legal theory. This quote right here gets to the heart of it. You can feel the pressure in boardrooms all across Europe. The deadlines are real, the stakes are incredibly high, and this directive is forcing a complete change in how organizations look at digital risk.
So that's the big question we're going to tackle in this explainer. Why was this even needed? Who does it actually apply to? What do you really have to do? And maybe most importantly, what happens if you don't?
To really understand NIS2, we've got to start with the why. Why did we need a new directive in the first place? Well, the short answer is that the digital world has just exploded. The threats have gotten way smarter, and the old rules, they just couldn't keep up anymore.
So, this is NIS2, the EU's new cyber shield. The whole idea is to create this unified, really strong defense for the entire digital market. Because everyone now recognizes that an attack in one country can just cascade across borders in the blink of an eye.
The original directive, what we call NIS1, had a pretty serious flaw. It let each country decide for itself who its essential operators were. And what that created was, well, a mess. A total patchwork of different rules and wildly different security levels all over the Union. So NIS2 just comes in and scraps that whole fragmented approach for one clear, harmonized set of rules that applies to everyone, everywhere.
And all of this really boils down to one simple but pretty ambitious goal: to raise the security baseline for everybody and achieve a high, common level of cybersecurity across the entire Union.
Okay, now for the million-dollar question for so many of you watching. Who exactly has to follow all these new rules? This is where the directive gets really specific with some new categories.
The great thing about NIS2 is that it tries to eliminate the guesswork. It lays out a really straightforward rule based on size and then splits companies into two main groups. So here's how it works. NIS2 splits everyone into two buckets: essential and important. Essential is pretty much what it sounds like: supercritical sectors like energy, banking, and health. Important covers other key areas like postal services and manufacturing. But here's the key takeaway, the big rule. If your organization is in one of these sectors and you have more than 250 employees, or your turnover is over 50 million euros, then yep, NIS2 applies to you. But, and this is a really important but, even if your company doesn't directly hit those numbers, you are not necessarily off the hook. Why? Because NIS2 puts a huge emphasis on the security of the entire supply chain. So if you're a supplier to an essential or important company, you're absolutely going to feel the ripple effects of these rules. Okay, so if the directive applies to you, what do you actually have to do? Well, NIS2 doesn't mess around. It's very specific about what needs to happen. Let's break down those core mandates.
The whole thing really boils down to 10 fundamental cybersecurity risk management measures. You can think of these as the absolute bedrock of compliance. They're designed to build a complete, comprehensive security posture from the ground up. So, the first 5 are all about your foundation, your planning, and your policies. We're talking about robust risk analysis, a crystal clear plan for handling incidents, solid strategies for business continuity and crisis management, and of course, a framework for securing not just your supply chain, but your own internal development too. The next 5 get more into the nuts and bolts, the operational and technical stuff. This covers everything from basic cyber hygiene and training for all your staff to having specific policies on things like cryptography. It demands strong HR security, think access control, and it specifically, by name, calls for using multi-factor authentication.
And this quote right here, this points to maybe the single biggest change with NIS2. Cybersecurity is no longer just an IT problem. The directive makes it absolutely positively clear that the management body, the board of directors, is personally on the hook. The accountability now sits right at the very top. And you know, with that kind of responsibility comes, well, some pretty serious consequences. So let's talk about the high-stakes world of incident reporting and the penalties for getting it wrong.
Right, the crucial thing to understand here is the speed. If you have a significant incident, a clock starts ticking, and it is ticking fast. You have just 24 hours to give an early warning to your national authority. Then a more detailed report is due within 72 hours, and a final, comprehensive report has to be in within a month. I mean, these are seriously tight deadlines.
So what even counts as an incident? The definition is pretty broad. Basically, any event that messes with your data or services. But a significant incident,
the kind that kicks off that 24-hour countdown, is one that causes some serious operational disruption or major financial loss.
And the penalties for not complying? They are severe. For essential entities, we're talking fines up to 10 million euros, or 2% of the company's total global turnover from the last year, whichever number is higher. That's a figure that is absolutely designed to make everyone sit up and pay attention.
But NIS2 isn't just a big book of rules and punishments. It's also about building something bigger, a collaborative Europe-wide ecosystem for cybersecurity.
At the very center of this ecosystem is ENISA, the EU's cybersecurity agency. Its role gets a massive boost under NIS2. It's now in charge of developing technical guidance, keeping a registry of key providers, and even setting up a whole new European vulnerability database.
The directive also creates these formal networks for teamwork, like the CSIRT's network. This connects all the national incident response teams so they can work together quickly when something happens. And then you have the cooperation group, which works at a higher, strategic level to make sure all the member states are on the same page.
So there's no doubt that NIS2 is raising the bar. It's building a higher, stronger, more uniform defensive wall around Europe's most critical services. But it also leaves us with a pretty big question for the future, doesn't it? In a world of constantly evolving, ever smarter cyber threats, is any wall, no matter how high, ever truly high enough? Or is this just the next chapter in a race that never really ends?